Right. So today we're diving into MobiKwik. And, you're thinking about their IPO, thinking about whether it's going to be, a good investment or not. So we've got some interesting info from their leadership team to kind of really break down how this company works. And one of the things that kind of jumped out to me right away is that they're claiming to be profitable, which is pretty rare for, a fintech company these days. So how does that even work?
Yeah, it's quite unusual, isn't it? Most of their competitors are still, burning through cash just to acquire users. But MobiKwik says they've kind of figured out this formula with what they call a two-pronged business model.
Two-pronged, huh? Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
All right, so picture this. They've got a really strong base in digital payments, specifically with their digital wallet, which they claim is the largest in India by transaction volume. But they're not stopping there. They're using the, payments strength to branch out into financial products as well, offering things like loans and fixed deposits, even mutual funds.
So they're using that payments platform as like a jumping off point to offer all these other financial services. That's clever. But how are they actually making money from this? I mean, I use UPI all the time and I'm not paying extra for it. Where's the profit coming in?
Yeah, that's where the details get interesting. On the payments side, they've got a take rate of around 7 to 8% on transactions. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but it translates to a 20% gross contribution margin for them. And since they're not spending a ton of money on getting new customers for those financial products, they're just leveraging their existing users. The margins on those products can be even higher.
It's like they've got a built-in customer base for their financial products. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially in a market like India, where so many people are just starting to use digital financial services.
Yeah.
It really seems like MobiKwik is setting themselves up to be, the go-to platform for this whole, new wave of users.
Yeah, exactly. And the numbers seem to back that strategy up. Just in their first quarter alone, MobiKwik processed something like 25,000 crore rupees in payments. That's a huge jump from last year. They also added over 5 million new registered users in that same period, and they're doing it mostly through organic growth and word of mouth. No big expensive ad campaigns necessary.
Wait, 5 million new users in just 3 months. That's wild. And they're actually making money. And I can definitely see why investors are excited about this IPO. But you mentioned earlier that there was a slight loss reported for that quarter. Should we be concerned about that?
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on for sure. It could just be because of seasonal factors. Or maybe it's a sign of, some growing pains as they expand so rapidly. Hard to say for sure at this point, but definitely something that warrants a closer look.
Good point. So even with all this impressive growth and what seems like a pretty solid business model, are there any other potential risks or red flags that we should be aware of?
Well, of course, the Indian fintech landscape is incredibly competitive. There are established players. You've got hungry startups. Even big tech companies are all vying for a piece of that pie. So how MobiKwik navigates this crowded space is going to be critical to their long-term success.
So how are they planning to stand out? What makes them different from all the other players out there?
Well, they seem to be betting on a few key things. First, they're constantly innovating. Their Pocket UPI solution, for example. It lets users connect their MobiKwik wallet to UPI payments, which is a pretty unique offering. Second, they're really focusing on serving users in what they call Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. That's a demographic that's often overlooked by other players.
That's smart. They're going after that underserved market where there's huge potential for growth.
Precisely. That's where the real opportunity lies. The Indian digital payments market is expected to double in size, and we're seeing a similar trend with merchant adoption of digital payments as well. If MobiKwik can tap into this effectively and maintain their current growth trajectory,
they could be in a really strong position. But we can't forget about the regulatory landscape in India either. The rules for digital lending and financial services, they're always changing. And that could have a big impact on MobiKwik's business model too, right?
Absolutely. That's a key factor to consider. New regulations could either open up new opportunities or they could create obstacles for MobiKwik. It's a wild card investors will definitely need to watch closely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. It sounds like MobiKwik has a lot going for it. Impressive growth, a unique approach to profitability, and a massive target market. But they also face some pretty significant challenges, especially from competition and those potential regulatory changes. This is where it gets really interesting for potential investors. You've got this incredible growth story, but you also have to weigh the risks. It's a classic high-risk, high-reward scenario.
Exactly, and that's why doing your homework is so important. You need to look beyond the hype and carefully consider all the factors we've talked about. before making any decisions.
Well said. We've covered a lot already. But there's still so much more to explore. We'll be back in just a moment to delve even deeper into MobiKwik's expansion plans and what those mean for their future.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about MobiKwik's expansion strategy. They've been talking a lot about, their incredibly low customer acquisition cost, which they're attributing to organic growth, product innovation, and that strong word-of-mouth marketing that we touched on earlier.
It is remarkable. I mean, most companies in this space are just pouring money into marketing just to stay afloat. So what is MobiKwik doing differently?
Well, it seems like that laser focus on product differentiation is a major factor. We were talking about the Pocket UPI solution. That's a perfect example. It's something unique that solves a real problem for users. And that kind of innovation attracts customers naturally. And then, of course, there's that strategic focus on those underserved markets in those tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Right. They're not just going for the low-hanging fruit. They're actively trying to find those untapped opportunities.
Exactly. They're playing the long game, building a loyal customer base in areas with massive growth potential, and the numbers show it's a strategy that's really paying off. But growing the user base is only half the battle, right? They also need to make sure that merchants are on board with their platform. What are they doing on that front?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you can't have a successful payments platform without a solid network of merchants.
Exactly. And MobiKwik is investing a lot in expanding their merchant network. Going beyond just those simple QR codes, they're offering things like the MobiKwik Wipe, which is this soundbox-like device that gives you instant payment confirmation. They're even offering point-of-sale or POS machines.
So they're basically evolving from just a digital wallet company into a more comprehensive payment solutions provider.
Exactly. And by providing these extra tools and services to merchants, they're creating this kind of stickier ecosystem. Merchants who are already using MobiKwik for payments are more likely to adopt these other solutions as well. This means more revenue for MobiKwik through things like device rentals, payment processing fees. It even creates opportunities for cross-selling to those merchants.
Wait a minute, cross-selling to merchants too. So it's not just about selling financial products to consumers.
Nope. They're applying that same strategy. Come for one thing, stay for more. But on the merchant side as well, they acquire merchants through their payment solutions and then offer them business loans, maybe other financial products down the line.
So it's like this fascinating flywheel effect. The more users they get, the more merchants they attract, which in turn attracts even more users and so on.
It's a clever strategy, especially when you consider their incredibly low customer acquisition cost. They're building a network effect that allows them to grow efficiently without having to rely on those big, expensive marketing campaigns.
It's impressive. But, me, I always like to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah.
Are there any potential downsides to this approach? I mean, it almost sounds too good to be true.
Well, we do have to keep in mind that MobiKwik is still a relatively young company, operating in a really fast-paced and ever-changing industry. So maintaining this momentum while also navigating the complexities of profitability, competition, and regulation is going to be a significant challenge.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We can't ignore those potential pitfalls.
Yeah.
But based on what we've seen so far, it seems like they're doing a lot of things right.
Well, they're definitely a company to keep your eye on. They've really carved out this unique space for themselves in the Indian fintech landscape, and their ambitious expansion plans could really pay off big time if they can execute them properly.
So we've explored MobiKwik's innovative business model, their impressive growth story, and that incredibly low customer acquisition cost. But the big question is, can they really sustain this incredible growth rate while also tackling the challenges of profitability and facing off against intense competition? What are your thoughts?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Honestly, only time will tell. But what we do know for sure is that MobiKwik is making some bold moves and challenging the conventional wisdom in the fintech world.
Their strategy of leveraging their payments user base to drive the adoption of financial products is really interesting. If they can pull it off, it could be a real game changer.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating case study in how to disrupt a market and build a sustainable and profitable business in what is a notoriously difficult industry.
I think you're right. We've covered a lot of ground today. But as always, there's more to explore. So let's take a quick moment to gather our thoughts, and then we'll come back and wrap things up. Leave you with something to ponder about MobiKwik's future. Okay, so we've talked about, MobiKwik's strengths, their impressive growth story, and we've even touched on some of those hurdles they're facing. But let's bring it back to you, the listener, for a second. Knowing everything we know now about this company, what are your thoughts on MobiKwik's potential?
Well, it really is a mixed bag, isn't it? They have a lot of positive things working in their favor. That innovative business model of their really strong growth and their focus on that underserved market. It's all very compelling.
Yeah, but we can't forget about those potential roadblocks either, right? The competition in this space is fierce, and those recent quarterly losses, even if they are just a blip, they do raise some questions about long-term profitability.
Absolutely. And the ever-changing regulatory landscape, it just adds another layer of uncertainty to the whole mix. It's a very complex situation with a lot of factors at play.
So out of everything we've discussed, what stands out to you as the biggest potential for MobiKwik?
I think it's their strategy of leveraging their existing user base to cross-sell those other financial products. If they can actually execute that effectively, I think it could be a real game changer for them. Imagine a company that starts with payments and then seamlessly integrates this whole suite of financial services. That's a powerful proposition, especially in a rapidly growing market like India.
It's like they're creating their own financial ecosystem where users can just manage all their money needs, all within a single platform. And they're doing it in a way that's innovative and cost-effective.
Exactly. And don't forget about their focus on those underserved markets.
Right.
There's a huge untapped opportunity there. And MobiKwik is really positioning themselves to capitalize on that. They're not just going after the same customers as everyone else. They're going where the future growth is.
Right, but that growth comes with its own set of challenges. Can MobiKwik actually maintain this pace?
Yeah.
While also navigating,
Yeah.
A constantly evolving regulatory landscape.
Right.
And fending off all those aggressive competitors.
That's the key question, right? And it's something that any potential investor really needs to think about. You've got this classic case of high risk, high reward. MobiKwik has the potential to be a major disruptor in the Indian fintech space, but they also have some very real challenges to overcome.
So what's the final takeaway here for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as they consider MobiKwik in this upcoming IPO?
Well, I think it all comes down to, your own personal risk tolerance and your investment goals. MobiKwik is a fascinating company with a lot of upside, but it's not without its risks. So do your research, weigh the pros and cons carefully, and then decide if it's the right fit for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We've given you the insights and the information to start your own deep dive into MobiKwik. Now the final decision is up to you. Will they be able to maintain that impressive growth and become a dominant player in the Indian fintech market? Only time will tell. But one thing's for certain.
Yeah.
MobiKwik is definitely a company worth watching closely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into MobiKwik.